Nisar Memon, very warm welcome to Coffee Table. Water environment is a very touchy issue as the environment is taking toll and the subsistence in even the global future is on stake. Worldwide it's an issue, and in Pakistan it's very important because agriculture and water are the two main important areas that builds the backbone of Pakistan's economy. But if we pollute the environment and by using water or by not using water, now it's an issue that needs a scientific review and careful policy analysis and policy implementation is. But what are the facts behind it? We have invited today with us Mr. Nisar Memon. He is an ex-federal minister and he is expert on the issue. Recently held a conference and he'll be writing a report on that as well. And in the Senate, his report is still pending somewhere, I don't know where, but pending, where he actually proposed the future of Pakistan, which had it been implemented would have been a future. Now to his right is Dr. Imran Khalid. He's done his PhD from United States and currently he's working on climate change and on other words. Nisar sir, very warm welcome.
Thank you for inviting.
What is the basic premise of the subject? How do you club together water and environment by just putting up one compound word, water environment?
I'm happy you asked this because a lot of people think that water and environment are separate. I believe that water environment is life. And when I say this, I say it with all responsibility. It's not only the life of the human beings, it's also the life of the living being, which includes the animal kingdom, it also includes the plants, and it also includes the ocean life. So I think this entire thing, water and environment, has to be seen together in order to understand the life. And also, it's not only about, let's say, only about mountains or the plains or the coastal line. I'm saying this because we have long coastline of Sindh and Balochistan. It is not all about one province or the other. It is about all the regions, including 4 provinces, Gilgit-Baltistan, Fatah, as well as Kashmir and Azad Jammu and Kashmir. It's all regions and it's all people from wherever they come. It affects them equally. Therefore, I think it's not something not only about affect them, but it's also a matter of their security. We can always discuss this aspect a little bit more. But I think it's also the security of the people as well as the country. And therefore, I think there are so many aspects to it. And I think the professionals look at various things and then they proceed with it and they do the analysis. And I think any analysis must be followed by a recommendation as they see it at a point in time. And I think, as you rightly pointed out, we had a conference and right now the draft has been made. We have sent it. I thought the best is to send it to all the speakers who were there, who contributed to the conference, and that whether it has been recorded by repertoire correctly or no. So they will be looking at, as soon as it comes, we will present it.
Right.
You also mentioned something which I'll need to correct that. In 2003, when I became senator, I was given the responsibility of the Parliamentary Committee on Water Resources, and we worked for a year or so and we came out with a report, and that report was tabled in 2005 in the Senate, which is what is there, and it is given to the government. And if we have time, we will even discuss some of the major recommendations were accepted and they were implemented also. And let me just tell you, one of them was Bhasha Dam, and we can discuss this later. So it has not been shelved. It was placed in the Senate as it's normal for every report, and then the government takes it forward, and Parliament is not an executive, so we don't follow up on that.
Okay, all right. Just to build upon that, what are the facts of water in Pakistan? How much water we have? How we can store and use it properly? What are the facts?
I think water at this point in time, if you look at it, we are in right now it's in a very difficult situation. From 5,000 cubic meters per capita, it has been reduced to 1,000 now. And soon will be scarce, which means in about few years we will be lower than 800 square meters level, which will be a scarcity. So we are really at a dangerous level in terms of water. Now, Obviously, why is that so? I think there are two or three aspects which I like to share with you. And one is very important, that the population growth is tremendous. I think this is phenomenal. And we need to cater, in our planning we need to cater that. One is to contain the population, because it's not only water, it's the food and various other things that impact the country. So one is the sheer population. So per capita quickly reduces if it's lower. The other one is also the management of whatever water resources we have. And there has been, for example, I'll tell you, there was time when we used to get water for drinking free, and now we have it bottled, so we pay for it. Water has to be treated as any resource which need to be even priced, because if the water comes monetized, because unless you do this, the people will be very
even for agriculture.
I'm very happy to see in one of the mosques, I was told it was a Jummah, and in Faisalabad, they had given the bottles to do the wuzu. Now if you imagine, you open the tap and it is flowing, there is no account of it, it just flows and you are wasting. So there are a lot of wastages in our use. Also in terms of supply, there is also related to the environment, it's related to the rains, it also is related to what happens to our glaciers. I think, and we have the rivers, which obviously are something that we need to also just harness that. And I think right now the most dangerous thing that I see is that the surface water and the underground water, the aquifers are drying away. I think we need to find out ways how to fill them up and charge them. If they are not charged, that is our reservoir. This is something that we need to see. And I think that the other thing is that we also have these three rivers. Well, if you remember, in terms of Indus Water Treaty with India, we had three rivers to our side, Indus, Ravi and Chenab, and the other three went to India, eastern rivers and western. Now the question is, on these we need to build structures. We have built, but I think we need to build more structures, such as the small dams and the large dams, because dams is only a storage, and this is something we need to do. We have done it in the past, but for a long time we stopped. And this is where I'll just like to remind you that when our committee met, thank God at that time, the earlier government had ordered and study on the Bhasha Dam. Because Kalabagh was subjected to the political vagaries. Therefore, this came in as a one additional resort, and we grabbed that technically it was feasible, and we recommended. And I'm very happy to say that all the four chief ministers, including from Sindh, Balochistan, Frontier, which is now KPK, and Punjab, they were sitting, and Minister for Water and Power, at that time it was Sheprao, if I remember, yes. And then our members from all the four provinces, from 4 members of the Senate, 4 members of the National Assembly were sitting, and we all agreed, they all agreed in the Parliament House that yes, this is something we agree, it should go.
At what stage the dam is now?
Well, I would say that I'll be very candid. As a Pakistani and as a professional also, I'm very disappointed that movement has been very slow. Because 2005 and today we are 2007.
11 years.
It is good, because I have come sometime from Gilgit by road when the flights are not there, or even sometime I want to see the topography. I think the roads which are lower and where the spillways and other things will be there, particularly the pond will be there. I would say the lake will be there. The water would have submerged the road, so they made the newer road, which has been made. The lands have been acquired. I think it was a question of funding, and that somehow or the other it went into international difficulties. Some of the funding could not be made for reasons political reasons and some other reasons and diplomatic reasons. Therefore, but I think right now the government previous as well and now particularly this government, the previous also went, but the speed was not. But now I believe that the movement is taking place, and I think funding should never be an issue, because you see when there
Domestically
is
we can.
domestically you can. I tell you, if you want to raise, if something is important, which it is important, then even a small little tax to every individual contributing to it will be possible. So I
Right.
think it could be more, it could have been more, but it's still slow. Now it's picked up. So I think we hope to see that, because if you don't do it in time, the cost will go up. Using that input.
Right. Imran Sahab, what are the issues on pollution? Especially I'm talking about that because the dam that is in the future, the downstream. Already the river Ravi is bringing a lot of bad stuff from India, and then we add the bad stuff from when it comes to our territory, and that goes, just passes from the Lahore and other way polluting environment. Then this flood irrigation, wasting a lot of water as a resource, and Memon Sahab was just saying that water should be monetized for that reason. So what is the picture?
The picture is very clear for all of us to see. We don't have to go far from Islamabad to realize the impact the environment around Nalalay is having on the people area. You started with Ravi. I'll give you the example of Nalalay.
Right.
Just because it's closer to us.
Right.
It was a natural stream. It's historically been a natural stream, used for drinking water, used for supplies to the home. But over the years, after urbanization of the capital city, with the industrialization that's happened, we can see all the waste
That is thrown there.
that is, you know, we are basically using it as a conduit for our waste. We're not treating our wastewater. We don't have municipal treatment plants. We don't have treatment plants at our industries. We've got a great set of national environmental quality standards since the late 1990s, but their implementation is unfortunately
Is not there.
It's non-existent.
It's not
So it's so that's closer to home. And if you go, you know, and look at Leh, you'll see that there are people living right next to it, and it's having a major impact on the health. It's having a major impact on the economy, because if people want to have clean drinking water, if they don't have sanitation facilities, what's going to happen? It's going to have an impact on their health. They won't be able to go to work. It's going to eventually impact our economy. So this is the lens through which we should really take a look at our water quality. Coming to Ravi, coming to Karachi and the cases of Liari and Malir rivers as well. These are all water bodies that have been impacted immensely by the humans and the way we deal with the environment, and it's horrible.
mistreated.
We've mistreated them. You've got tanneries in Kasur. You know, again, the wastewater, it's not being treated, and it's being drained out into the open. Nisar Sahab started out by telling us how water and environment are interlinked. You know, he mentioned the human dimensions, and so unless and until we take a holistic look of the subject, we won't be able to resolve these issues. And it's not a problem of realizing that, you know, we have these issues. We realized that there were problems. We brought up an Environmental Protection Act. We've got National Environmental Quality Standards. We've got a clean drinking water policy. So, you know, we've got a national conservation strategy. I can go on and on about the type of things that we've done to protect our environment, at least at the policy level. But it's at the implementation level where we really do need the political support of our leaders.
All right. So here we take a break, and after the break we'll try to analyze the fact and how we are mistreating natural rivers and stream, and on the other side we are not harnessing water that is coming from the hills and just coming down, and we are wasting it and throwing it into the sea. Please stay with us.
It's diverse.
It's original.
It's SDTV.
Welcome back. Nisar sir, you just heard the environmental, the other side of the coin. What do you think about it?
I think that's very, very important. I recall that when we were studying, making this report on water and recommending to the people of Pakistan via the government, we did undertake 2 studies, and because we felt that it's not only water coming in, it's not only the storage, it's also the environmental state. So we authorized, in fact government fully supported it, and 2 studies were made, environmental studies. One down Kotri, the one was ahead upper in the north. So these 2, I was told recently, in some of the places they said, sir, we benefited a lot after that study, because by then we were gone, and they were implemented, it went in. And I think it's very important to not only once do it, but from time to time understand the environment, undertake the environmental study to see the impact of water on the people and everything. So I think this is one. The second thing is, at that time, after that parliamentary committee, I was chairman of the defense committee, and then we undertook. One fine morning I woke up and I saw a plane of Pakistan Air Force was down in Karachi. By who? By a bird going into the engine. So we said, this is, you don't keep a clean around the airports, you will have your assets coming down, and the people, assets mean the pilot is a big asset as well as the machines. So we called a meeting, and then it was decided we'll undertake a environment study of Karachi, which took us to not only Air Force point of view, but also from the naval. And naval brought in a big thing, because our ships were polluted by the pollution that was coming in, the chemicals coming in and destroying them. So big assets. So I think, and also remember that we have the plants like mangroves and other which are unique. They were being destroyed because of the chemicals and untreated discharge into the sea, because there's a marine life. So I think it went on fine. It was not only that the study was tabled in the Senate, but we made it a point to present it to right up to from their stages, because Army, Navy, Air Force were involved. In fact, I'm very pleased that at that time the responsible officers of Karachi in the Navy as well as the Air Force fully participated in it. And we made this presentation to the Prime Minister, then Prime Minister of Pakistan. And all of those people who were part of it were invited. And there were 17 recommendations. All of them were adopted. And last one was, which I think Dr. Saab ne very correctly point out, is a question of implementation. And we at this point, that these are fine. Everybody has accepted the recommendation, implementation. So we made an implementation committee of all the stakeholders. And there were, by the way, it's not only Air Force, Navy or professionals, or there were all the NGOs, there were also the users, stakeholders, all were there. And there we made this committee for implementation, and I saw to it that there is Prime Minister fully supported. That's why in this country, of course, the executive must support, and they supported. And we had first meeting of the implementation committee. I just want to only close by saying we also found that various laws, as was mentioned, were there. We studied them. There was no need for additional law, because we are lawmakers. We thought there must be some law which we must propose. There was no need for it. So there was the question of implementation. I think one of the things we must do in our country is to really have the implementation focus, and that can only come by having the stakeholders committee overlooking those, and then it will happen. So I think environment is not only from here, but also from the north. If you look at it, what happens to our glaciers, that to me is a very important thing, and I gave this.
But that is global rather than local.
This is global as well as local, because remember, when there's a GLOF, which is glacier lake outburst floods take place, it affects how is it affected? It is because of the international temperature rise, global temperature rise, and also the way those glaciers like Siachen, for example, you see the Indian machinery, heavy machinery on 80% of the glacier of the Siachen is there, and I urge them to move, and I think Pakistan side will also move out because both sides will move out to do justice to the mother nature, because this is an international global resource. Now what happens if you don't move? The temperature rises take place because of the heavy machinery and movement, and then you have Atabad Lake, which was an outburst, and the humans are affected, and all entirely the road was blocked, and you. So I think we also need early warning systems, and I'm happy. This is one of the things is preventive, which I think many organizations, and I can quickly think of the Pakistan Meteorological Department, installed various early warning systems, and some of the even NGOs are doing this, and I think we need both early warning systems for the north in the mountain as well as in the coastal areas, because we need to have, because now the coasts also need to be monitored, because you know that otherwise you have the problems of the coastal line also, which we have seen. So I think all of this has to be nationally between the provinces, and regionally between the countries, and globally need to be coordinated.
You know, a quote of Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi comes to my mind very often, where she said that the poverty is the biggest polluter. And if we are not doing harnessing our water, which is flowing down the channel into the Arabian Sea, we are obviously not controlling poverty. So what do you think that we should immediately move to build new structure, and what are those structures?
I think poverty is always an issue that need to be reduced, and this can only go by economic development. And economic development directly affects this. And I'll give you an example. 2 weeks back, I was with the Sindh Industrial Trading Association site, and with their management and with their members, to discuss with them the effects of untreated discharges that are made by the industries. And I was very happy to share with you that they said we recognize it, and because they have to follow the law also, I think they already have a plan to install some of the treatment plants together with the government of Sindh and probably also government of Pakistan to install those. I think sooner they are done, the better it will be for the country. And also, please remember, all the exports that are made, now if you are exporting fish, and we have a big reservoir of fish, then you need also that there are certification levels, and that will, if you don't do this, then you will not get the certification, so your economy is affected. So I think this is just one aspect. I'm happy they are working at it, and soon it should be off the ground, but I think government need to be fully supportive of it. I even suggested to them a public-private partnership too. Now coming on the other side, pollution also need to be stopped. The poverty will stop if we can reduce the cost of producing the energy. And as you know that we are very privileged that we have fortunate that we have rivers, and we have solar, which we are started to exploit. We have wind, which in my own province and districts, Thatta, there is a wind corridor, and that is being used, and wind energy is being produced. The other thing is that we need to produce hydel energy, because hydel is the cheapest. So I think we somehow or the other delayed it. I'm happy we raised the level of Mangla by 3 feet, which produced more water. But now I think we need to produce more dams. And I'll tell you why the dams are needed. Because Terbela is getting silted. Now silting is something I always used to ask from the experts. I'm not an expert on the dams or others, but I would ask, because that's the way we never stop to learn. I would say, why can't we remove the silt if that is the case? Because we are not able to make other dam. So the cost of removing the silt will be equal to making a new dam. Fine. I think there is a greater need to, number one, make smaller dams, which are recommended by the committee, and we even worked with the government at that time to allocate the funds. So that's small dam. large dams we need to also work on the ones where there is consensus. And I will
Which
also
is Bhasha?
Bhasha, and I'll come to Dasu. So we came out with, and I think there's a very good plan, is that cascading effect. You see, if you have a cascading effect, which means that if anything that's coming up to Terbela, try to build the structures above Terbela, then the slitting will be stopped at those levels, and life of Terbela will also increase. So this is one. Until such time, politically, they can find a consensus on Calabar. That doesn't mean that we stop. So I think, so there is, one is that there is already, the immediate thing was to go for the Ghazi Barotha extension, which gave them something like 150 megawatt, which means 600 or so. Then there was also a few more tunnels in Terbela, that was second. These were immediate short term. And I think,
And I think they're doing something.
yeah,
on
yeah,
Terbela as well.
that has been done. But I think in the shorter term, in the medium range, Dasu, which will give you something like 4,500, probably 4,000
And what is the
megawatt.
water? How many million acre feet?
I don't remember the number right now. So I think then after that there is also Patan, and then the major one will be,
Munda.
yes, so those are on the other side. On the Indus, I think these are the ones which will give Pakistan a greater economic development and directly fight the biggest enemy of this region, is poverty. In fact, India must understand that we reached with the thanks to World Bank, which brokered the Indus Basin Treaty. And I, for one, would always give examples. And in fact, I was invited to speak of our experience of Indus until last few months back, when there was a voice coming in that we don't want to be in Indus. And then in India also, a lot of people think it will not be possible for anyone to walk out of this. And I think World Bank also must take pride in taking in 60, and that should be one. So I think number one is to make more. It's not make, I say invest in the dams so that you have greater reservoir and you can meet the challenges of the people and drinking water, and price it also. And I think I'm reminded of something in one of my visits to Australia. Australia is one country which has laws for water which are innumerable, but finally they solved their problem because they also had the difficulties of water. But what they have is unique, which I don't know if anywhere else is there. They have, just like where stock exchanges, they have water exchanges. Now, water exchanges mean if water is allocated to your land, to my land and his land, then if I'm not using, I can say I will put it to the stock, to the water exchange and trade it. So there's no waste. Today, people waste it. It's my water, I'm not using it. There's no way to give it to others. I think that will, to me, was a remarkable thing. But that required installation of telemetry. Now, let me also share with you that at that time we implemented telemetry way back in 2002 and 3 and so on. But it did not take the implementation to the extent it should have been. So I would say that telemetry and these things should be installed so that you measure the water flow and from one to one. This will also bring unanimity of views on the data within the country and also outside the country. For example, if the water are flowing and tomorrow there is some difficulty, India should install on the other side and we should install. And this is not something by taxes and faxes that you're sending it. It just picks up and data goes and comes in. So it's a very transparent way of doing it. Yeah. I think all that I'm saying can be done nationally, has been to some extent done too, and so can be done regionally, which we represent in all the regional forums.
Right. So here we take another break, and after the break we'll try to get some conclusion and ask our other guest that if he has some point of view on that. So please stay with us.
It's diverse.
It's original.
It's SDTV.
Welcome back. Dr. Imran, what do you think? What is on the upstream, what are the main issues that need to be remembered before building large structure, that we should not destroy the mother nature, or we should not do wrong to someone else?
About dams, and we do have few dams, but as you know, siltation does take place. It does have nature does take its toll on such structures over time. So there is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Peter Glick at the Pacific Institute in the US, and now he's come up with this aspect which is called the soft path to water, which is as opposed to the hard path to water that the US really relied on, and that we've also relied on over the years, and that's building dams and building structures. And the soft path says, take into account the nature, take into account human dimensions. Perhaps you need a dam, but we should not. In Pakistan, whenever there's a discussion happening, everybody turns to Kala Bagh and says, well, we need to have a Kala Bagh dam, and if we had that, that would resolve all our issues, all our problems, and that's not the case. So we need to have a balance between nature and development, and that can only happen when you take into account how nature works. And so in Pakistan, which is approximately 1,000 miles north to south, in which there is a great deal of elevation that's gained going from exactly.
Continuous.
And so we've got
Gradient.
Exactly, there's a gradient. We've got a number of languages. We've got different kind of seasons. We've got forests and deserts. So you cannot have to fit the need. And so that's why you need to go into specific areas and try and learn about them. So we need to really have a baseline analysis. So I'll tell you that climate change has already started to take its toll on Pakistan. But in a number of our districts, we don't have baseline analysis. What kind of flora do we have? What kind of fauna do we have? How many people are living there? What are their activities? So once we do that, after that, can we try and go and see whether we need another dam, whether we need another kind of structure? And so this is something that we need to do before we start talking about that. The second aspect that I wanted to highlight was conservation. So we do have a population that's increasing by the day, but it's not like we haven't run out of water. Just go out into our streets and you'll see people washing their cars virtually every day. There are drivers who are washing their cars, and right after they're done, they're not even, they'll run the water run. They'll put the hose down, it's going to run right into the drain. You'll see water tankers flowering the plants on the road, even if it's raining. There are YouTube videos available on that. So there needs to be a change in our psyche about how we should manage our
Paradigm
water.
shift.
Right. You talked about wudu and the importance of water to Muslims, but we waste water even while going before God. So these are things that need to happen. These things need to happen starting with us. The poor people use very little water. I use water for our toilets. I use water to wash my car. I use water to water the garden, water the lawn. I use water to take showers twice a day. The poor people are not doing that. So it's going to have to start with us, the educated people.
But so the water that is stored in a dam ultimately goes to the poorest of the poor, sometimes through agriculture. And one thing more, very startling fact, when Tarbela Dam, that came online, and that was about 2%, that contributed 2% to the GDP of Pakistan at that time. In today's term, any dam cannot be 2%, but even it's 1%. And if Pakistan's economy is $280 billion, it means $3 billion annually. Any dam which you make that loan and the total investment would be offset in 2 years. And then that 1% is free for the next 25 years. You can do anything with that money if you plan it properly. You can give to the poor. Just look at the advantages of the dam.
There are certain advantages, but when we talk about having more dams, what I'm saying is that we need to focus on what we already have and try and conserve water there. For example, when we talk about water efficiency in our agricultural sector, 90% of our water goes towards agriculture, and the efficiency is only 35%. That means there's a wastage of,
Yeah, we need to
huge
create
wastage.
zones in agriculture also, because there was always the time when a certain agriculture product will not be grown. For example, if sugarcane, I think it's tremendous amount of water it takes. Now one need to do a study where it should be. It should not be putting up everywhere the sugarcane and then sugar mills and all that. I think we need to see what can be grown where. I think that's very important.
Now people are transporting sugar mills because of the wrong planning.
I think we need to also see, for example, sprinkling is also there, because as Dr. Sabhay rightly pointed out, that water has to be conserved. Just because it's available, you cannot use it just like this. I've even have seen some of the people wasting theirs, and I said, why is this water? He said, well, it was of no value to me, so I flooded my neighbor. And I said, you're destroying somebody's land. So what do I do with it? So I think it's also used as an offensive purpose. Water is good for life. Water is good for peace. Water can also be a weapon. And as we have always heard that there will be wars on water, is because of the lack of understanding and appreciation. Number one, stop destroying the mother nature to have a negative impact on water. Start implementing in reality, in spirit and in totality, the agreements that you already have. Like we have a very good agreement. You need to improve them, but Indus Basin Treaty is an agreement, and we could in fact have had one with Kabul River. You remember 2010 what happened? Floods took place because Kabul River, Indus River, nature brought it together, and it was a big havoc for Pakistan. All areas right up to the sea it was affected. I think we need to live like good neighbors by sharing the information, very important, and do the joint studies. I would even go to the fact that in 1947 the country Pakistan achieved independence, and so it was Britishers left, one part the present India, the second part Pakistan. Having said this, it was the division of the territory. Water division took place in 1960 as against 1947. What we really need is to see, there's a newer concept, can we do the profit sharing rather than sharing the water. Profit sharing will be that if you are up country and I'm downstream, upstream and downstream, they can decide, well, this is better to have it in the downstream, the water could be allowed to flow, but the benefits will go equally. I think it's all about communicating, sharing information, sharing knowledge, and joint management. For example, if somebody says that I don't, and it always comes out with the trust. Wars take place because there's no trust. Water wars also would take because of the no trust. I think trust can only come by sharing knowledge, information, working together, and jointly managing even the resources. This is what I believe.
One last question. Water and environment are, they are on the two sides of the same coin. And I remember in 2010, after the flood, the famous Indian Mr. Pachuri came here. I was working with him for a documentary to introduce. So he just gave me, and I met him in a local hotel. He told me that he just passed by, flew over the flooded area, and the water there was all mudded. It was a thick mud like water in Sindh and all that, in Punjab and all that. And I was hurt because that mud the flood has taken away the humus. That's the best part of the surface, the flood has given. And second, in one flood, 59 million acre feet of water was thrown into the Indus River. That can fill all the dams for, all possible dams. For if one dam is 2% of the GDP, according to that, about 15-20, all the foreign loans of Pakistan were thrown into the Arabian Sea. So, the dams have to be. But do you think there should be something to protect the environment? How it should proceed?
I think
both of you.
I think it's very clear that we need to be very clear as to what are the efforts needed. It's not only the flooding of the rain and the flooding by the river, it's also the destruction of a good land near the sea coast, because there are hurricanes that come in, and they have happened, and I've seen myself the seawater to the good land and river not able to stop it also. So I think all of this, as I said, that number one need to work together in the different areas. And I think in a country, if we talk about country, I think these are the issues which can be handled very, very effectively to remove any mistrust, and working jointly by the Council of Common Interest, because there is a constitutional provision, and we must exercise that to bring all the units of federating units of Pakistan on one page, because I think there is much more need for a communication, because all of these things can be done. One, early installation to stop the hurricanes, stop the gulfs and other things, and the second is the water installation of the means and equipment to be able to share whatever is due to anyone. Because if that happens, then I tell you, people will be very happy to work to say, okay, let's share the benefits of water, not share the water, because sharing the water at the end of the day is benefit for the economic development and to reduce the poverty. And I think greater economic development will come by with the greater understanding between the federating unit and in the region. And one other thing, we must represent our country well in the region, and we must develop our skills, capacity building in not only water, but I think we must develop our water related legal system. I think if we are in the international arena, where you know that if there's anything dispute, arbitration and other thing, then you need legal minds. So I think our universities, which are institutions to support water, so it's the water management is one, and also the legal management of it, because in the past there were some voices that we could have probably saved our day by having a better legal representation in those forums. I think that is important, that we must have training, education, universities, we must work closely. Second, the other thing is skill development of our people.
Right, Imran sir, one single issue would you think need to be taken, not that you do everything and then build, one single that must be taken into care before we going ahead with building structures and all?
I think, if we whether you're trying to build structures or not, you need to have coordination. And you talked about coordination between the federating units, and I'm going to talk about the coordination between different agencies that you have. So after the 18th Amendment, you've got water becomes a provincial subject, but there are also agencies at the federal level which are dealing with these and have been dealing with these issues for a long time. So an interaction between WAPDA and the irrigation department then becomes very important. You talked about floods. So we have a project by the name of PRISE, Pathways to Resilience in Semi-Arid Economies, where the impact of climate change on the cotton value chain as well as the water governance. Right. And what we've found is that there are a number of agencies that deal with these issues, but unless and until they're on the same page, we can't resolve our woes that we've already discussed. So to briefly answer your questions, it is definitely coordination, and we can repeat this: coordination, but not only at the provincial level, but also at the federal and district level, and then coordination between the various departments, respective departments and ministries.
Right. Thank you both, and with this we come to the end of the program. For now, next topics, next guest, and keep watching our program, and it's goodbye for now.